EOS Go presents EOS Radio, your first source for everything about the new blockchain Internet of Value. You'll hear from key contributors to EOS, including interviews with block.one, dApp development teams, and block producers. You'll get community updates and answers to common questions, meetup information, opportunities to get involved in EOS, and much more. We're live every Monday at 6 p.m. EST or 2300 UTC, wherever you are. And now it's time for your hosts, Kev and Blue Jays, in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome everybody. Today is March 12th, and we have an amazing show lined up for you guys today. A lot of excitement out there, huh, Kev?
Oh boy. Yeah, it's been a big day, big couple of days, I'd say. Welcome to episode 3, EOS Radio. I'm Kev, and that was Blue Jays. We have a lot to talk about, and we have many guests coming on to talk as well with us, and just thrilled to be here, Blue Jays.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here too, and I've been keeping up to date with all of the things that have been going on today, and I'm excited to see what this platform has got for us in the future, and some pretty big names going after EOS today, and I think that's just due to how awesome it is, to be honest.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, there's a lot of ways to spin it, I guess, and I know from my own standpoint, I don't feel it's that big of a deal. So, and I know that may shock some people, but I think EOS will eventually speak for itself. And I think that as long as the community keeps doing what it's doing, we have by far the strongest community of any blockchain, any cryptocurrency out there. I think this show proves that tonight when we bring in people from all around the world who are passionate about EOS, just like we are. And they're going to talk about it. And they also have big plans. They've changed their lives for EOS. I think that speaks enough to the power of this project.
I absolutely agree. I think it's the way it was designed. You have a distribution where people can build up their stake over a time, and then there you go. You have a whole bunch of people committed and loving this platform and what it's going to stand for, and having a little bit of FUD here and there is going to be honestly to be expected. And if the bigger it is, the more relevant I think we are in the community, in the world, and in the community.
I agree. And we have, so here's the plan for the show tonight. We're going to talk about what EOS Go is. As always, we'd like to clarify and make sure everybody knows about EOS Go. Blue Jays will do that. We also have Erik Hoel coming on. You may have seen his introduction in our Steam It post from earlier, or I should say our busy post from earlier. Erik Hoel is a very passionate member of the EOS New York City community. He goes to all the meetups up there. He's also in the Forbes 30 under 30 top scientists this year in science. He has a PhD in neuroscience. He does scientific research at Columbia University in New York. We'll let him talk more about all that stuff, but he's coming on to talk about all the speculation, the rumors, and go over everything with us in just a couple minutes. He will be up first. And then, as everybody knows, we have Iryo coming on, the CEO, and a couple other employees will be on about 6:30 or so, coming on about 25 minutes from now. And they're going to discuss their project, talk about all of the issues we're hoping to bring up, some of the questions from the community, and hopefully get some good answers as to what's going on there. And then finally, EOS Gravity in Shanghai, China will be coming on.
All right, let's get started. Well, I just wanted to, as usual, I'm going to bring up what we're here to do, our mission and our vision. So EOS Go is a neutral community organization, a grassroots organization for informing and strengthening the EOS ecosystem. So beyond the launch, we're looking to continue to bring a lot of value to EOS the EOS token holders, and also by just doing more of the same work which we're doing now, putting the BP candidates list together, running this show, and being an information clearinghouse for all the parties that are part of this wonderful ecosystem that we have here. So let's begin. And first off, Kev, is there anything that you wanted to say before we got started? I know you just mentioned that awesome agenda that we have. So anything else?
Well, when it comes to all the news, we are going to discuss some of that with Erik here shortly when he comes on. We're going to talk about the John Oliver show. He is excited to bring that up. We're also going to talk about the Binance, the news that was released today about Binance will register EOS for you. However, we still don't recommend that because You should never leave your coins on an exchange, first of all. And second of all, as Dan said himself earlier today, you don't know if there will be multiple coins that get launched. There could be multiple snapshots for EOS, multiple chains that launch. And how do you know that Binance will take the care to give you coins from every single one of those chains? So we have a lot to discuss. There are a couple other bits of news as well. We have 2 meetup organizers, I believe, who have presented their meetup. They have a pre-recorded video, so you'll meet, I believe it's Sheldon, and is it Daniel Keys as well from EOS Nation?
EOS Nation, EOS Toronto.
Nice. Okay, yeah, we have those guys coming up later on with the news, and we have Erik coming on here shortly.
Okay, sounds good. Did you want to start with some news, and we'll wait for Erik to join? Or there he is.
Yep, there he is. He's fast.
Yeah.
Wow. Hello, Erik. Welcome. Can you hear us, sir?
Yes.
All right. We're just talking about the John Oliver show. We're just getting into it.
That's
we introduced you briefly. We'd like for you to describe yourself for a moment. We talked about the Forbes 30 under 30 top scientists and so on. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Sure. I'm a research scientist and author here in New York City, and I've been involved with blockchain. Actually, I'm a relatively recent entry in that. I've just come in mostly over the past year. God, it's been a little bit over a year now. And I've been involved with the EOS community here in New York, still trying to kind of get to know everybody and figure out kind of how large this community is and how deep it goes. And so far, it's been really great.
And I remember I met you up in New York when I went to the meetup at the beginning of February. It was a pleasure, and that's partly why we were hoping to bring you in here. You are one of the most passionate people I have met about EOS. Your background outside of blockchain is very impressive. So you're obviously a bright guy. And so let's jump right into it. What are your thoughts on this John Oliver situation here that we have going on? Go ahead and describe it for us.
Yeah. So you know, I think there's a pretty large amount of confusion regarding exactly how these new initial coin offerings are going to work, particularly like in a legal sense. So John Oliver was kind of poking fun at EOS in particular, just because, well, it's the largest kind of online crowd sale that's ever been conducted in the history of humankind, right? It's $1.5 billion now, something very, very massive like that. And, you know, the way that they're doing it is this very kind of intricate economic design wherein you pay into this token contract and you get out these tokens. And these tokens are, I mean, they're technically kind of these worthless IOUs. I mean, they're not even IOUs, right? They're just these markers by the fact that you want to participate in this community. And then at some point soon, the people at block.one, which is the company behind EOS, is going to finish the software and they're going to release it open source to the community. And then the community is essentially going to start this thing themselves, probably using the distribution of these, you know, tokens. But of course, that means that when you go to interact with this online anonymous crowd sale, you essentially have to read like pages and pages of legalese that says, you know, these things are really worthless unless somebody decides to do something with them, right? Like we, the people who are writing the software, aren't the ones who are going to be deciding what to do with this software or how to launch it. So this creates a very interesting scenario, right, where it's kind of hilarious that people have put in over $1 billion into this thing, and I think John Oliver was, you know, kind of playing that for humor and saying, like, look how kind of completely ridiculous this is. And in one sense, he's correct. In another sense, it's like, well, these things are developing new economic models that we haven't seen before. And this is one of them, right? You just grow the community first, and then you deliver the product, and it's the community who decides how to use the product.
It's also a community that contributes tools as well to the overall software, and I think that's interesting. We have Chintai that's out there. It's going to be a leasing sort of program, and we know that block.one is also working on some leasing functions as well too. So that's interesting how the community is also writing software as part of the overall effort.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that there's a bunch of ways to get involved kind of at the community level. I mean, so one of the big, you know, issues, like, first of all, in the John Oliver segment, again, he kind of goes after Brock Pierce in particular, who's a member of the block.one team. kind of speaking about the effect that decentralization will have. It's going to change everything and so on. And, I think that in that sense, he's talking about crypto in general, possibly not, it's literally changing every single aspect of our lives. But I do think that at this point, it's somewhat inevitable that just like the internet drastically permeates, the fabric of everyday life, at some point, relatively soon in the future, like the blockchain will do effectively that. And once you kind of realize that, you kind of realize where we are in this technological adoption curve, and that it's going to become an S-shape no matter what. Statements like it's going to change everything, it's very easy to make fun of that on a late night talk show, but it's probably somewhat real.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think. Go ahead.
Have you guys seen the clip with Brian Gumbel and Katie Couric about the email? I mean, I don't know how many people have seen that, but that's hilarious. And
explain email to me,
What is that @ sign?
Yeah.
What are we going to say nowadays, Yeah, so Lambos and all of that stuff is just part of everything that goes along with it. And that doesn't detract from the fact that this is amazing technology, and it's going to change things.
And let me give an example of why I'm like in particular excited about EOS in comparison to say like a lot of the other cryptocurrencies, like something like Bitcoin or so on, right? So I think we're moving from this previous conception of these decentralized ledgers as being, first we have the usage of currency, like something like Bitcoin, and then we have something that's like much more complex, like Ethereum, which acts as sort of this computer, and you can run these, like it basically is a Turing complete virtual machine, and you can run on this distributed ledger as well. And I think that EOS is kind of the beginning of building communities around these distributed ledgers. And this is going to sound like a little bit crazy, but I think that in the future, what we conceive of as some sort of political system is going to be a lot more fluid, and it's going to be a lot more essentially tokenized. I mean, I really think that there's not, it makes a lot of sense to build these kind of decentralized commonwealths that exist pretty much digitally. Tezos is pretty much the only other blockchain community thinking this way, and that they're building a commonwealth. They're not just building a bunch of code. They're building a community that's going to exist on top of the code, and it's going to have all sorts of ownership rights and property rights, it'll have legal disputes, it'll have all sorts of different things within it. And I think that EOS directly having a constitution is an example of how it's basically the first of this very kind of futuristic form of governance. And at first it'll be a little bit more local, and it won't replace anything like a nation state, but eventually, who knows?
Well, that's what I was saying at the top of the show as well. This kind of the John Oliver show, it's a very, of course it's going to happen, right? We all kind of admit that we're passionate and somewhat ridiculous in some ways because we just love EOS, and we know it is going to make a big difference. But however, the token sale terms, they don't make much sense to anyone outside. It took me personally a couple days to really wrap my head around the whole thing. Like, why would they do this? And so on and so forth. But once you get it, it makes sense, but it is hard to get there. And it also, this segues nicely into our next point, which is about, you mentioned a digital commonwealth, which is a strong set of words. We want to avoid the word security. And there has been recent talk about block.one and a possible know your customer or KYC type of situation happening before the launch of the chain. I know Dan has come in and cleared up a few things today. What are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, so I was actually paying attention to the Telegram earlier today as well, and yeah, there's definitely a lot of I would say lack of clarity around exactly how this chain launch is going to go forward. And let me give an example of this, which is that previously we didn't know. There was this question of, well, why should the community respect the initial token distribution when they launch this thing? So why should you paid to get this one IOU? Why should you receive your one, like EOS on the blockchain, when the chain does actually launch, right? And at first, I think it wasn't very clear, and the assumption was that maybe there'll be like a bunch of these different chains. But then at some point, it became very clear that there'd be an immense economic gravity well towards the adoption of the original token list, without anyone specifying or legally saying that they have to do that. And one example of that is the EOS VC fund, which is a $1.375 billion at this point VC fund that goes to financing the ecology of the chain, and that's pretty assuredly going to be the chain, whichever chain has the token distribution, the correct token distribution on it with all the holders of it. So in that sense, the problem kind of solved itself, in that, you know, like, people weren't really aware of the chain, they weren't aware of the fund for a while, and so they weren't really aware of how this economic gravity would kind of pull and basically ensure that the chains would start with a particular distribution. So I think we're kind of in a position of similar lack of clarity regarding the know your customer, like within the US, because of the financial regulations that are currently in place. You know, block.one doesn't want anyone from the US buying tokens, and similarly for Chinese citizens as well. But in general, I think the concern was that if they had sold this $1.5 billion kind of anonymous crowd-sailed thing, and then it turned out that later, you know, because of pressure maybe from a financial institution or because somebody basically changed their mind, you would have had to undergo this like rigorous know your customer process in order to kind of like claim these things. That would have been like a really, really serious problem. I personally don't know whether or not that is happening, right? I think it's still like a little bit unclear, but my current analogy is that it's similar to back when it was unclear why exactly the chain would have a certain economic gravity to it.
Yeah, and it's part of what you said, you know, with the KYC, and that's partly what Dan talked about today as well. Is that cannot be coded into the software itself, right? It has to be something the community is launching the chain, right? And so therefore the block producers would have to be the ones that enforce that KYC.
And that doesn't seem possible. I mean, at first it doesn't seem very possible, just because I think somebody pointed out that there's something like 200,000 EOS addresses right now. You know, I mean, if you wanted to get the chain started in like a few days, you can imagine that it would be completely impossible to organize, you know, which block producers are going to do which KYCs and so on. Like, it becomes this really difficult process. At the same time, I think today Dan talked about different levels of permissions. So, I mean, what I would like to see with something like EOS is, because I do think that in building a digital commonwealth, reputation is very important. So you need identities on the chain, or at least identities to a certain degree. So what I would like to see is essentially that the chain starts effectively anonymously, right? Because that's the fastest way to do it. It's the fastest way to grow the community. I mean, you can say, please don't do this, et cetera. But, you know, in practice, you're just allowing anyone to contribute. And then you transition to, you know, kind of like the final evolution of this thing, which is that there are all these accounts with associated names, reputation scores, social links, people who they're connected to via hacked account recovery, kind of connections and so on. So, I mean, that would be the ideal, but it would be, I think, helpful if block.one at any point kind of specified maybe a little bit more about how they see the evolution of that.
Well, they did mention KYC Oracle. So when you have an Oracle system, you have a system that you can look up. So it's almost like a lookup table, and then you look up and you use that system to do KYC. So maybe it'll be down to the DApp level, where particular dApps will use that Oracle in order to tap into that functionality.
Right. Yeah, and that's I think that's a likely, like that's definitely a likely outcome, that this becomes DApp based. I think that you know, Dan Larimer, the engineer of EOS, or the main one, is you know, he's got some very particular or he's got a very particular vision about how I think EOS should function, and it involves this notion that he talks about called radical transparency. And that's a very, I think, interesting notion. It's a very powerful one. And by what he means by radical transparency, it's essentially that there are no, and I forgive me if I like misparaphrase his point, but that there are no like anonymous wallets. And you can imagine how that would make, you know, theft has been a really big problem in something like Bitcoin, right? Where anyone can create an address. And what that means is that if somebody sends, you know, tokens, if they get into your account and they send tokens to this anonymous address, that's just going to enter some mixer or go into some exchange. Like, there's no way to track that or get that back or whatever. And they can do this many, many times. Whereas in EOS, you know, if it was the case that real identities, even real world identities, were associated with wallets, essentially, such that you can't really, you basically have to send only between these known accounts, then suddenly, like, if you're a thief, right, you have to find some way to, like, get a real account, you know, that goes through this KYC process. You have to be sure that that's somehow not going to lead back to you in real life. And then you can only get away with using it once anyways, you know, to get money once. So I think it makes the chain, like, much more secure from this really big problem that we see even now with these, like, Twitter scams. We see it, like, all the time with Ethereum and Bitcoin. You know, the problem is kind of getting from what people in cryptocurrencies are used to, which is basically, you know, radical, like, opaqueness, where nobody knows anything about anybody, to this point where everybody knows everything about everybody in this digital commonwealth. And, you know, hopefully that will be a slow evolution rather than let's try to just, like, kickstart this thing really hardcore right off the bat.
I think we as people, we tend to think in dualities, like you just mentioned, and it's either radical opaqueness or radical transparency. But effectively, in the end, what you have is a tool which will enable multiple. It's not a one-size-fit-all sort of solution. It's going to be several different solutions, and the free market is going to choose, right? So maybe one area of EOS, a dApp, or if it's down to the dApp level, we don't know. But if you were to choose between a dApp using KYC and a dApp where you don't have KYC, it's really up to the user at the end to select which one they would want to use. And,
right.
And it's just like going to the store. You wouldn't want to have just one soft drink that you want to buy, and we know which one Kevin wants to buy, but it would be, you want to have a selection there, and I think that's what the tool is the software is enabling.
Yeah, and it could even be different chains too. There might be some kind of privacy chain that for EOS that is able, someone enables a new technology that allows for a privacy chain to exist with the EOS software, and it would communicate hopefully with all the other EOS chains, which would be pretty interesting. We'll see how that works out. And that, let's kind of lead into the speculation. Where do we think EOS in general is going if we assume that everything works out, the launch goes fairly smoothly, and there is one dominant chain? What are your thoughts on the future of EOS if you compare it to a couple other blockchains?
Right. So I think that we're in this interesting situation where, you know, if you look, so I spent some time kind of after getting into this, looking at the history of these things, and I think that we're very clearly in this, like, generation 3 moment where these new cryptocurrencies are coming onto the scene that are, in some senses, you know, you can use the word superior, but I use that word just to mean directly technologically in their capabilities. Like, so for instance, Ethereum is clearly kind of superior than Bitcoin in that direct technological sense, and that it's far more flexible, it's Turing complete, it can do all these things. But of course, Bitcoin still has a larger market share than Ethereum, because with complexity comes the possibility of bugs and mistakes and all these other things, and Bitcoin is much more secure and does one thing very simply. I think these Gen 3 coins are really kind of, you know, stepping it up in that suddenly all these usability problems, which I think is the number one issue with anything involving blockchain. I mean, we talked earlier about that moment, that very famous, now famous moment on where news anchors are basically asking each other, you know, what's email, what's an @ symbol, how does that work, right? I don't think it's unreasonable to say that using blockchains now to do really anything is about 10 times harder than even, like, using simple forms of email early on in the history of the internet. Like, it's just very, very difficult. And what's more, everything involves money. So it's like, if you make a mistake, all your money is gone because you made a mistake. And it's basically like, you sent the wrong email, right? You can just imagine it that way. Right? Like, you sent the wrong email. Well, all your money is gone now that you sent the wrong email. So, you know, what I think that a lot of these Gen 3 cryptos are trying to do, and there's only a small handful of them, right? I mean, there's really only, you know, something like Zuiqua, Tezos, EOS, and, you know, a small handful of others. And what I think EOS in particular is going to do far better than any of the other Gen 3 cryptos is get the usability to the state at which people can actually have accounts on these things that don't know what the heck a blockchain is, They don't spend the hours trying to figure out how any of this stuff works. They don't copy paste like maniacs and like do crazy stuff like load, files on, computers that you've wiped, you have like your dedicated, crypto laptop or whatever, right? Like no one is going to do that. So I think EOS in particular has, I think of all the chains, the highest chance because of its properties of usability and the things like hacker account recovery and two-factor authentication to have a DApp that ends up #1 app in the App Store. I think that's if EOS achieves what it sets out to do. It gets that #1
So what
app.
you're saying is like we really need that killer app, or we need that sort of the same way email added that level of complexity, but it also enabled us to send messages to each other a lot faster, right? So there was that big benefit to it, and we just need to see that from something developed on these technologies.
Well, it needs to be seamless too. You can't have a user having, like you just said, you can't have a user trying to figure out how to use private keys or what the private key bin is and all this and that. It needs to be usable. But
yeah, no, absolutely. And the fact is that, I mean, and you could clearly see this in the market recently when the market, I think probably almost universally agreed upon at this point that the price of the market outstripped the usability of any of these things, right? Where like Bitcoin transaction fees were flirting with like $40 to send some Bitcoin to somebody. It's completely insane. Now it's much lower, and it seems like things are getting a little bit better. But Ethereum, which is another big DApp platform, is very similar to that. And I don't think that there's any evidence that it will be able to handle any sort of transaction load or run something like a decentralized Uber or a decentralized Airbnb or a decentralized Facebook on it. And I think that EOS is probably the first thing that's at all capable of doing anything like that. And it does it through a few clever design choices. Of course, and those design choices lead us to like debates about exactly what's going to happen with KYC and with all these other issues.
yeah, not to mention that with Bitcoin, when they stopped accepting Bitcoin at the Bitcoin conference in January because the transaction fees were so high, that's when we become fodder for late night TV, right?
Yeah.
And EOS, of course, is another easy target at this point. Give us another year when the blockchain is launched and things are rolling. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, like John Oliver is going to get out in like a foreign city in like 2 years, and he's going to want to hail like a taxi, and he's going to use his like EOS app. So, like, it's like, laugh now, and that's good. And it was very humorous and I think funny segment. But
everyone eventually knew what the @sign meant.
Yeah, precisely. It's like it seems very foreign and weird. Yes.
Erik, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I always enjoy hearing your opinion. You were just phenomenal. You're well spoken. You're a very bright guy. So thank you for coming on with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure. We should do this again.
Yeah, we definitely would like to. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Erik.
So we're going to bring on Iryo. They've been waiting in the wings to come on. They have a team. I think it's three of them will be on in just a moment here. Excuse us. Let's make sure they get the notice here. They should be coming in.
Okay.
All right.
We're waiting for them. Kevin, what did you think about what Erik had to say? What do you think we'll be in a year's time?
Oh boy. Well, we'll say, hey guys. Wow.
Well, there you
nice
go.
Setup. We'll talk more about that later. But hello, everybody.
Hi, guys.
Good to see you guys. If you could go ahead and introduce yourselves, please, so we can get to know all of you guys.
Just a second, there's this really weird beeping noise on our side, so...
Is it some kind of a feedback situation?
Doesn't sound like it, actually. It's like a tone, constant tone, a dialing tone.
Okay.
Blue Jays, are you trying to call them?
Try to join again, right? Okay.
Yeah, they'll join again. Okay, we'll be here, guys.
Yep.
Yeah. So back to our original.
Okay. Can you hear us?
Yeah, you guys sound great.
We can hear you. Great.
Yep.
It's fixed somehow.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
You guys are getting too many calls, right? You guys are very popular these days.
It seems so.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to hear from Iryo. Thanks for joining us, guys. I know it's late there. I believe, is it 11:30 at night?
Yes, it is. That's why we're in the dark here.
That's why you're in the dark. Where are you guys located? Go ahead and give us a little introduction to you guys and to Iryo, please.
Right. So welcome to Slovenia, where Iryo is located. So with you tonight are myself, Vasya, Dominik, the CTO, and Luca, our main blockchain advisor. And yeah, it's almost midnight here, so we'll try to be look our best for you tonight.
You guys look wide awake. I think I see some coffee being drunk. Is that Dominic over there drinking coffee?
Green tea. Keeping healthy.
Very nice.
I'm on water.
You're on water, and we got nothing on the left side. Okay. Now, if you guys could give us a little bit of background on Iryo, help viewers understand your project, what made you decide on EOS, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a couple of things really. We've for a couple of years we wanted to do something in healthcare IT. For various reasons, because we think that the state of healthcare IT is pretty bad right now in terms of security, user experience, and so on. And then secondly, we think that the blockchain technology brings some interesting things to healthcare IT. And so that's how we got started.
Vasya, what are those interesting things? What are the benefits that users are going to see?
I think there's two things, I think. So one is that blockchain technology brings a new level of trust and transparency in systems that before were completely centralized. And then the other thing is the whole token economy and community-driven development and adoption and so on, which I think is also very much needed in healthcare.
And how is that? So what is your target market? Are you looking to start with Slovenia and then branch out from there? Or do you have a certain market in mind?
I mean, the solution that we're developing is really a global one. We think that it could be used anywhere in the world. Now, we don't want to go primarily into the United States. We think it's a much better approach for us to target the developing countries first, prove a couple of things there, and then move from there. That's also why we're doing the pilot project, the one that we're doing, but maybe a bit on that later. However, at the same time, we think that it is possible in the more developed markets to target sort of the long tail customers, which is the smaller clinics, specialist doctors, and so on. So we're in talks with for some deployments in that area as well.
And what is it that keeps you guys passionate? You guys are here with us 11:30 at night over there. You guys are wide awake. What is it that makes you so passionate about healthcare? Do you guys have a background in that, or?
Some people on the team have worked for healthcare IT vendors before, but I think that the most interesting part about healthcare in general is that everyone in one way, shape, or form is a participant, if nothing else, as a patient. And one of the, I mean, there's this purely business side to it, which says that in a couple of years the healthcare IT market's going to be worth 200 billion. Wow. So it's definitely a big market opportunity, but I think it's also on the other side where, on average in the world right now, we spend 10% of our GDP on healthcare. In the States, I'm sure better than us, that is closer to 1/5, so 20% of GDP goes to healthcare. And at the same time, we believe that the IT in healthcare has not made much of a difference in terms of improving it, making healthcare more efficient, more effective, and so on. And so we live in a world where, we're dreaming about machine learning, artificial intelligence, and so on, but we don't have the data there yet, organized, stored in a way that it would enable all of that. And, getting to a point where we can use artificial intelligence, machine learning, then we can start making healthcare more affordable. And otherwise, we're going to have really great healthcare and no one will be able to afford it. So obviously nobody wants that. And we want to change that and where we are and how things are going. And we think to be able to change that, we really need to go back to the basics and do something with the healthcare data. And so that's what we're doing with Iryo.
Is there any challenges that you guys have regarding regulations in the spaces that you're looking to roll this out on?
Yeah, so it's Again, initially we're doing a couple of pilot projects in the less developed markets. Also because, we're not hiding that fact. Also because regulation is less strict there. But it's an interesting question because we think that legislation, on one hand, it's a challenge because healthcare, for some good reasons, is a very regulated and conservative industry. And so on one hand, we need to do a lot of compliance country by country. That's also part of the reason why we're looking at the hard cap that we have. So why we're trying to raise that amount. But at the same time, the legislation we think is an interesting vector of change to come. So, we have this thing called GDPR in Europe coming in effect in a couple of months. And it's basically one of the things with GDPR is that it makes organizations that hold personal identifiable information, which healthcare data is, liable to data breaches. And if a data breach occurs, then that organization can be fined up to 2% of the yearly revenue. And so what we are seeing, especially in Europe now because of GDPR, is that organizations are realizing that holding the data is a toxic asset. And so especially healthcare providers are realizing they're not in the business of IT security. They're not in the business of protecting data. They're in the business of providing the best possible healthcare. And so while the legislation is a challenge, it is also a driver of change, we think.
I like the way you guys are approaching this, and we're also very curious about your technology and your blockchain itself, and how you see, and also how you got involved with EOS. EOS is a very public chain, and oftentimes public records, or rather health records, cannot be public; they have to be private. So we're looking to hear more about your technology and how you're looking to implement some of those solutions.
Right. So I'll start, and then I'll hand it over to Luca to explain a bit more on EOS and why and how and so on. So. One of the things that we are defending quite strongly with Iryo, first of all, is the question that we get asked the most is, you're putting healthcare data on the blockchain. And that's not something that we are doing. And we don't believe that's a good solution for anyone. Anyone who says that, we think that they don't know what they're talking about. And it's a simple reason. There's two reasons. One is that putting any amount of a lot of data on the blockchain is extremely inefficient, but more important than that, you shouldn't be putting personal identifiable information onto a public blockchain. Some say that the way around that is to encrypt everything and then put it on blockchain encrypted. But again, blockchains are designed in a way to be eternal. Encryption is not eternal, and if at some point we are able to crack the encryption that we have, then basically all the data we're putting on the blockchain is going to be publicly visible to everyone. So what we are doing and utilizing blockchain is basically using it to decentralize the most important parts of the healthcare IT system, which in our view is the access control list. So basically using the blockchain public ledger to store the information on who has access and the rights to view or add a specific piece of information for a particular person. Because we think that in centrally run systems, that is basically where there's the weak spot and where there can be abuses from inside players and so on, because you always have these administrators of systems who can do whatever they want inside the system. They can cover the tracks, they can change the logs and so on. And so that is really the part that we should be decentralizing and putting on the blockchain. It shouldn't be the data itself. Now, for why we chose EOS, I think, Luca, you have a good explanation.
So basically, we're putting access list to the blockchain, and the most important part of this is the revocation list. Basically, if you have like centralized database, whenever you revoke access to anybody, you have to trust the centralized server that they will not delete this piece of information. So if you do it on the public chain, then it's verifiable everywhere. It's timestamped, and so in this way it cannot be abused. So why we choose EOS? Basically, we looked all all the systems like Ethereum and Bitcoin, and of course they cannot serve this. Mainly, so we decided on the system when basically the white paper comes out, and the part that I really liked was in the paper when they say that you will be able to basically do your own app and verify only this one. So you will not need to sync all the smart contracts on the EOS, but you will be able to verify just your smart contract that you're interested in. So in that way, we can have like very nimble chain, and we can deploy the full nodes to verify all the access permissions that are issued, and these nodes can be in basically all the clinics that supports enough bandwidth for that.
So basically, we end up with really lightweight nodes, and we have fast transactions, low latency, and cheap transactions. Right?
Because I mean, if we will do it on the Ethereum, we will have to sync all the data, all the crypto keys, everything, and that's, I mean, that just wouldn't work. We cannot put this stress on actual clinic in deployment in real life.
Interesting, very interesting. So this type of data is obviously the most sensitive type of data. So you're really looking at having that encryption piece really down packed, as well as the smart contracts in order to facilitate your data sharing and data access. Is that it?
Yeah. So basically, there are two parts, two levels, basically to the whole security thing. First is the access control. So actually, who has control? But that's just a list. There are signed messages when you share it to somebody else. But that's not all. What we also do, we encrypt the data, and before putting it on. So basically, we have zero knowledge, and we deploy it on 3 nodes. So first node is your phone. It's not 3 node, it's storage on your phone. The second one is basically storage node in clinic, and the third one is backup to in the Iryo cloud. They're all encrypted. So this part happens off-chain. But these storage nodes, whenever doctor access them, they go to the public EOS chain and they check that everything is okay. And then they serve the encrypted data to the doctor. So doctor now gets this encrypted data, but he cannot read it yet. What he needs is basically my re-encryption key. So what I can do, basically the data is encrypted on my public key, and then I need to issue a re-encryption key to his public key. And he can then use this when storage nodes serve him data, he can then use this and re-encrypt the data to himself. And this is how he can then see the plain data on his device. So basically, there are two ways we're doing. First, it's encrypted, re-encrypted key, and then access list on the blockchain. It's
This sounds like one of the, so we talked to Nathan James last week. We briefly brought you guys up and talked about Iryo. He mentioned how current centralized systems do a similar style. Is that right? In terms of the doctor's side, it has to be re-encrypted on each side when the data is sent?
No, so basically what we can do, there is this proxy re-encryption. The NuCypher firm is doing it. It's basically what you do, you just issue a re-encryption key, and then server can re-encrypt from one public key to second one. So server can do the re-encryption, but cannot read anything. And he can then serve this re-encrypted data to the actual doctor, and he can then use his private key to open it.
Well, and there's another thing. So, traditional healthcare IT vendors, so they might be, I'm sure they're doing some encryption. The difference that we are doing here is basically in who has the private key to encrypt the data with. So in our solution, it's always the patient who has the private key, and so all of the data that belongs to the patient is encrypted with that patient's private key, public key. Yeah. So basically without the patient deciding to share access and the data with someone, nobody can access it. And so it's sort of turning upside down the whole approach where, you know, it's not just the patient who legally owns the data, but it's also the patient that actually controls the data through those mechanisms.
And that's a good point. As somebody, Katie Roman in the chat brought that up as well, trying to get access to her own health records. I guess the patient would have access and would own that private key for the data.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. There was one additional aspect that security-wise that we achieve with new cipher and this proxy encryption is that by encrypting in a traditional way, you would basically share the secret key with other people. So they both need to know that key. And with proxy encryption, what we can achieve as well is that they both have their own secret key that they can use to exchange the data. Plus, additionally, it's really easy to do revocations and key rotation and stuff like that regularly without affecting the workflow in the hospitals and stuff like that. So it's from that aspect really secure as well.
And we know EOS is also working on forgotten passwords and stuff that would help usability. So I guess this is in the case where.
Okay, yeah. So what they're actually doing, they're basically giving the backup key, but you basically just switch the key from one account. You switch from one public key to second one, right? So you do this. So you basically don't do. You don't actually get your private key back. But in our case, we actually need our private key back because the data is encrypted with it. So it gets a little bit more complicated and it cannot be done on the chain. That part cannot be done.
Interesting.
But we're working on that solution as well, basically how to recreate the private key if you lose it, because we think that, again, you know, UX of that is really important. So if you give out the people private keys, obviously it brings a lot of benefit, but then you also need to take care of what happens when they lose the key, because people are, I mean, we're not that good with storing the keys.
Sure.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Let's switch gears a little bit, Kev. Did you have some questions?
I think we should definitely talk about token mechanics, tokens. That's what everybody's most interested in usually, but let's go towards the tokens and let's talk about what the tokens will be used for and how they work with Iryo.
So there's a couple of use cases for the tokens. So the first one is sort of the use case for added security. And so any healthcare provider that will be or wants to be a part of Iryo network. So basically the whole network is permissionless. So it's in essence, it's open for anyone to join. But the one level of protection is that we will require a certain staking of Iryo tokens. So if any healthcare provider wants to join the network, wants to start adding data for patients, they will need to stake a certain amount of tokens. Now, the exact amount we don't know yet because...
But no reward. They don't get any reward. So it's like access key for the software.
So yeah, basically it's, you know, a healthcare provider would have to stake, for example, $5,000 worth of Iryo tokens to be recognized as a legitimate player in the system. So it's sort of a first level of protection that not just anyone could join in. You know, they have to sort of be invested a bit. Secondly, we use the Iryo tokens for ways to enable emergency access. So, you know, if we design a system where patients need to approve access to their data, that patient might be unconscious, and then the doctor needs to get access somehow. And so we're working on a solution how to do emergency access, where basically we take the private key, we break it down into a couple of parts, and then two of those parts need to come together to form the emergency access. And so the patient could give one part of that key to his GP, one part of the key to us, and neither us or the GP would be able to access the data unless both of those come together. And so in an emergency scenario, if someone requires emergency access, they would ask the GP and us to put those two pieces together. But at the same time, as a security guarantee, we would ask for a deposit of Iryo tokens to the patient's address, and then after that's done, we give the other part, and then we grant the emergency access. And so in that way, we basically empower the patient that there might be some exploits tried that way, but there's a deposit there that would stay with the patient if there was an emergency access that turns out to not be an emergency access. So that's use case number 2. And then use case number 3 is that we believe that this is a solution that can be used globally. And so through time, there will be a lot of valuable information in the system. So it would also be possible to give access to that data to researchers, and the Iryo tokens would be used as an incentive to the patients, the data holders, to share data and information for specific reasons. And so the tokens would be used as an incentive for that.
That's pretty neat. Ed, go ahead, Blue Jays.
Yeah. So, I mean, what gives the token value in the ecosystem? I'm just not clear on that.
Right. So basically, the whole idea is that the healthcare providers that join the system need to stake a certain amount of tokens, and so the higher the adoption, the more of the tokens are staked. So we sort of have a higher demand of the tokens while the supply is unchanged. That's sort of the economics.
And also basically that pays for the storage, at least for some free storage, and we then get 1% inflation to basically cover more and more storage for free, as much as that will basically be worth. That's one. It's basically that you will be able to do research on your. So basically, researchers will be able to access your data on your phone. So basically, on your phone, your data is not encrypted, right? And so they can give you, they can ask you, hey, are you willing to participate in our research? And then you can basically take those tokens and say yes, and the whole research will happen on your phone. So these are use cases, and we hope that the tokens will stay in the system and that people will have more and more of them, while the whole number stays the same, basically.
And let's talk about the airdrop as well. And there's been we have a few community questions about the airdrop and about the reasoning behind parts of it, and also the process itself. Let's go back to the airdrop. What is the purpose of airdropping the tokens onto EOS holders?
Sure. So I mean, the number one reason why we wanted to do an airdrop is basically it's a marketing campaign to spread the word about Iryo and what we're doing, and to get people interested and motivated and so on. So that was the main motivation behind it. At the same time, we think that with airdrops, a lot of times they get exploited through bots, through various bad actors trying to just extract as many tokens out of the airdrop as possible. And so we wanted to fight against that. And one of the things that we did was we said that we will lock in certain preconditions in place before we go public with it, to try to prevent bots and spammers and exploits. And so what we did was, before we announced the airdrop, we took a snapshot of the account, which was on March 1st. And then we said that any person who had at least 0.1 Ether or 1 EOS in their wallet can register and can participate in the airdrop. And we think that that thing actually worked fairly well, because if we didn't do that, then if we would say that's the requirement, then some person would create 100 new addresses, send 0.1 Ether to every one of them, and then represent himself as 100 people, and so would get 100 times more tokens as someone who didn't do that. And so we wanted to protect basically everyone who participates through that. Now, the other thing that we did was we said that because we had that precondition and because we didn't pre-announce it, and we didn't pre-announce it precisely because of that, we also gave this sort of fallback option because there might be some false positives. So there might be some legitimate people out there who want to be in the airdrop but didn't have the balance because they either had the tokens on an exchange somewhere or so on. And so we said the fallback option is the reference code. So if you get the reference code and if 5 people join that fulfill those preconditions, then you get the same amount of tokens as anyone else. What happened then was that it became really popular, and so people started sharing those reference codes in different groups. And obviously one of the groups that is really important for us is the EOS community, so all the EOS Telegram groups. That's also part of the reason why we did the airdrop, because we're, I think, the first healthcare project on EOS, or I mean, at least publicly committed.
I hope we are.
And so we sort of wanted to be in touch with the EOS community. Once that started happening, people started spamming the reference codes on some important EOS Telegram groups, and we asked multiple times people to respect the rules of the groups where they are and not to spam and so on, which didn't happen. So it kept going on for a day or so, and so some of the EOS communities got a bit angry over that, which we completely understand. I mean, it's completely fair. And so we sat down and we rethought what was happening, and then we said that we can ask people not to do something, but they kept doing it. So we basically, after day and a half or 2 days, we then canceled the reference code. So everyone who used them up to that point was still valid and recorded. And then for the rest, just because we couldn't control how much people were spamming it, we decided to cancel it because it had some unintended consequences, basically.
In a way, it was a very successful marketing campaign. But yeah, as you mentioned, some unintended consequences there. Now, we've also heard about the 5% airdrop quantity. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so we're doing a couple of different things. So we have 5% of the total token supply that will be distributed through airdrops, but we have 3 different campaigns. So one campaign is 1% of the tokens will go to the attendees of our meetups. So we're currently doing a roadshow. I just returned from Asia. We did one in London, in New York. There's one coming up in Toronto. And basically, to anyone who is physically there on the meetup, we give them, they're eligible to register for an airdrop. So that's the 1% that we will be giving out to a cap of 1,000 participants. We have an additional 1%, which we're going to be giving out after EOS mainnet is live. And so that will go basically to any person who has an EOS balance. But that will...
based on weight. Basically, yeah. more EOS you have, more
Iryo tokens you'll get. But that will only be possible, obviously, after EOS mainnet is live. And then the 3% is the campaign that I've just described. And so basically for that campaign, we have it capped at 22.5 thousand participants. We have those preconditions, and that will be basically airdrops on Ethereum on ERC20 still right after the ICO, as well as for the attendees of the meetups.
And have you guys gone through the venture capital fund with block.one, or have you approached any of the other venture capitalist firms?
Yeah, so we had a couple of conversations with block.one, and again, that's one of the questions we get asked quite a lot. We talked to them. One of the things that we didn't agree on, or was unsynced, was basically the timeline. So we already had a pilot project underway. There's a development team that we need to finance and so on. And we basically needed to get additional funding as soon as possible, while block.one was just in the process of setting up cooperation with VCs that will help support the app development.
That was before the announcement, basically.
Yeah, that was before the announcement. That was just before the Everpedia airdrop came public. So we talked to them, and they basically said that they can't work on such a short timeline, and that if we need funding now, that their advice is not to wait for them, which is basically what we did. And then we decided that I mean, we still have a line of communication open, but we said that we're going to go ahead with the ICO, do that through proper crowd sale, simply because of the difference in timeline.
I respect the way you guys approach this. Clearly, you're driven to achieve your goals here, and you guys are just going to push ahead and do what it takes. And as block.one, have they given their blessing in terms of do they care about ICOs? Did they advise against it? Did they say we wish you would wait, or what was their response?
I mean, one of the things is, so I don't want to make public any of the stuff that we've discussed with them one-on-one, primarily because I think that they, you know, once you raise the amount that they've raised, you paint a big target on your back, and so they need to be very careful about what they say publicly or not say. And so I think they were, when we were talking to them, they were very supportive of what we were doing. Their view is that they understand that we need the funding, and so they encouraged us to proceed with the fundraising. But yeah, the rest of the stuff I think shouldn't be saying publicly because you know, they need to protect themselves as well.
Yeah, we didn't agree that we will tell stuff public also. So.
It's understandable, certainly.
What was the reasoning behind the 5% figure that you decide to airdrop on EOS token holders? And also, what is the benefit for you to do that amount in the first place?
I mean, that's a very good question. I'm not sure
So I mean, I can answer it maybe through the other way around, which is basically we get sort of compared. The airdrop gets compared to the Everpedia airdrop, which was completely different. And so, you know, it comes back to the question that you just put forward, which is the whole idea of block.one related VC funding. And so they basically got the entire funding through EOS VC. We are doing traditional crowdfunding, and so it's a bit different in those terms. And so for us, the 5% was really, you know, our main idea is give something back to the EOS community through the airdrops. That was motivation number one. Motivation number two was, again, our token distribution basically is unlike most of the healthcare projects right now that are doing an ICO, we are distributing 90% of our tokens. So we're only keeping 10%, 90% is going out either through the sale or through airdrops. And so we said that 85% of the tokens will be sold, and then 5% sort of looked like a reasonable number to give out to the community. But I mean, the exact percentages, you know, we can debate whether that should be 3%, 5%, 10, 20%. We thought that 5 was a relatively good number, and we can sort of grow our community with those 5% of the tokens. But yeah, it could be a different number as well. So
yeah, I tell you what I really admire about you guys. You know, of course, you're trying different styles to do the marketing. Some things work, some things don't. That's understandable. This is all new to everybody, right? The referral codes turned out to be a bit of a mess, like you said. What I do admire is that you guys are going all around to meetups, EOS meetups around the world, and you guys are trying to spread the word. You're trying to help start EOS meetups. So I think that's great. I think you're in Toronto pretty soon.
Yeah.
Is it right?
On Monday, I think Tiasha, who's not here because she's on a conference in Texas right now, but she's organizing that. So I think it's Monday. Yeah.
Okay.
And
cool.
What are your goals in Toronto? Are you trying to hook up with some local businesses there, or just expand the community? Let everybody know about Iryo?
More the second. I mean, for business development, we get approached by interested parties quite a lot right now. So with the meetups, it's more about spreading the news about Iryo, meeting with the local EOS communities and so on. And I mean, one of the things, that we really believe in is that healthcare is a very specific industry. And so anything that you do in healthcare, in general, in the healthcare industry, reputation goes a long way. And so anything that you do or any shortcuts that you take that will affect the reputation, and that will also make it a lot difficult to grow a business after the crowdfunding. And so what we are trying to do is with the meetups and all of that is to present what we're doing to people live, face to face, because we think that adds legitimacy to what we're doing. We think we have a good story to tell. We think we compare very good to other healthcare projects. Again, that we're not hiding the fact that there's it's a crowded space. It's probably more than 70 healthcare projects right now in some way, shape, or form and doing an ICO. But we think that the devil's really in the details, and so that's why we're going out. We're talking to people, and we are doing these lectures on blockchain in healthcare, why EOS, our use cases, and so on, and basically growing the community, explaining to people what we do and what we plan on doing.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, like you said, it definitely have to have that trust. You're dealing with healthcare data here, and what you guys are doing with the face-to-face, and also pioneering just new mechanisms to get your name out there. It's just brilliant. I commend you guys on that.
Yeah, and I have to say that we'll let you guys get to bed here soon. I know it's getting close to midnight now for you guys. I'd like to hear kind of what are the next steps for Iryo? What can EOS community members expect? What are you guys working on next? Give us a little rough timeline.
Right. So we just opened the whitelisting this morning. And so we have 2.5 weeks for whitelisting before the pre-sale starts. And then we have 1 week of pre-sale number 1, then 1 week of pre-sale number 2, and then we have the crowd sale. So that's one thing. The development team, Dominic and his team, are working very hard right now to deploy the first. To make the first deployment happen, which will be in early April. That's the pilot project that we're doing in the refugee camps. Then after that is a deployment for a telemedical company. And then thirdly, we are in talks right now, close to signing a contract with with a network of some healthcare providers, but that's something that we will present publicly, hopefully very soon. There's negotiations ongoing, so that's basically what's going to be happening throughout this year. We obviously have a 5-year or 7-year almost roadmap for other things that we want to develop and support, and so on. And so we think that EOS will deliver what they're saying they will deliver. They will be live in June, July. So when that happens, we still need to make sure that we do a proper token swap, because right now we're going to do the ERC20 on Ethereum. Then we need to do the token swap to get everyone on EOS. And hopefully in a month's time, we'll have the ICO closed, and we have the funds needed to go ahead with the roadmap that we have planned.
And what should where can people find more about you? Where do you guys recommend that people should go to?
Probably the best 2 sources are either our Telegram group, which is Iryo Network, or the website Iryo.network. And everyone, I mean, all of us are on Telegram all the time, so they can come talk to us whenever, more or less. And yeah, everyone is more than invited to come to the meetups. Like we said, Toronto is next week. So, we'll be happy for anyone who joins. And yeah, we're also, like we said, we have a special airdrop campaign for people who attend the meetup. So that's a bit of an incentive to come as well.
Sure.
Well, have fun in Toronto, guys. It's one of my favorite cities. So you'll just sign off. And thanks, Luca. Thanks, Vazia. Thanks, Dominic. It's been great.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting us. It was a good interview. So best of luck in your future shows.
Thank you.
You guys very much. Good luck.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, I thought that was a great interview. Blue Jays, I know they're still on the line here trying to sign off, but I must say I respect what they're doing. You know, and it's like I said on the show, like I said with them, it's natural to take a couple of missteps. It's okay. It's okay to mess up once in a while, and at least they admit what happened and they fixed it right away. And I think that they're doing a lot of good for the community as well. Just all the meetups, and they're flying all around the world. Vaja, he just came in from Asia, and he flew in and went directly to this show just about. So I thank them again. It's been great having them on. We have EOS Gravity coming up from Shanghai, China. They should be on here in just a moment. What are your thoughts, Blue Jays?
Yeah, like you said, they're entrepreneurs, right? And they're trying stuff, and things may not be perfect. Oh, look who we have! We have Joe and Mira from EOS Gravity in China. Guys, I don't think we can hear your voice at the moment, but hello.
Hello.
Hey guys,
Hello.
Great to have you.
Kevin, hello, Blue Jays. I have been practiced like 55 times already.
Yeah, the butterflies are no longer here in our stomachs, so hopefully you guys are feeling good as well. We don't see that huge EOS Gravity banner in the background that you were talking about.
Unfortunately, we didn't have time to get it ready.
That's all right.
Hey guys, so it's
like 2 hours. Are you tired?
oh no, we're not tired. We love talking EOS. I don't know. I think Kevin feels the same way.
I can go for hours and hours. Yeah, Blue Jays knows more than anybody. I'm sure you guys can too as well. And thank you. What is it? What time is it there right now? 7 in the morning? A little past 7?
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming on so early and being ready for this interview. We're excited. The community is very excited to hear from you guys. All kinds of rumors and some idea of what you guys are doing, and we'd love to find out more. Can you guys just give us a basic intro about yourselves and EOS Gravity?
Okay. So as the first candidate to be as a BP interviewer, so we decided to make it more not so serious because I'm really afraid people getting boring of all things. So we make it more easily, but we will cover all the points. And we're here to represent the Gravity. So let me start with the team.
Sounds good. Yeah.
So here, we're based in Shanghai. We basically have 14 full-time members, and everyone is important. Here, I'm going to mention the 4 core members. Let's start with the CEO. His name is Ocean. So he established Gravity in 2017 September, and right now, at this moment, is already having over 100,000 members. I mean, community members. It's really a lot. It's really a lot.
That's a lot.
Because we have a lot of full-time workers manage the group. Like we have 500 groups. Every group have 500 people. Yeah. So we're managing the group. We're giving the info every day. So the member is expanding really fast. So anyway, Ocean is the core here. So we are everyone relying on him. Second person I'm going to introduce is the co-founder. His name is Peter. So I make example to not get it bored. Say if Ocean himself is a Superman, this Peter is Batman because he is man who have resources of VC. Right now, soon you will see the list of our investor. Peter himself is the co-founder and director of the Water Drop Capital, which already invested in us. So he's the one who have resources. And third person I'm going to introduce is Joseph. You do it yourself.
I will introduce myself. So I'm Italian, and I'm in China from 5 years already. I had time to study the Chinese culture in these 5 years. And I've been working with a lot of big companies like Tencent. It's a really big company in China. You probably already heard of it.
Yep.
I'm in the blockchain market from a while, and I've joined the EOS community more actively from January, as you guys from Google. And I founded EOS Link with the goal of helping other communities. And now that's how I'm in Gravity. I'm taking care of BP strategy and operations.
Okay. Last, the most, Myra. So I used to be a police officer in the truth office, the Kung Fu stuff.
Kung Fu.
Kung Fu stuff. Yeah, and after I started as a serious entrepreneur, I own a few companies in China. And last year I joined the cryptocurrency market. Yeah, because I know that few, I'm not saying now, but few women join this market or they start up. I try to be more special. Right now in Gravity, I take care of contact the community overseas. I'm the leader of overseas business development manager. Okay, that's the team. And everyone is important, but we're gonna to release our, profile.
All the rest of the team is going to be into the introduction paper that we're going to publish in a few hours.
In a few hours.
A few hours, okay, cool.
Oh wow, great.
Are you guys putting? Is it going up on Steam? The introduction paper?
Yes.
Okay, very cool.
Could you guys tell us a little bit about the overall mission that Gravity is going to bring to the table?
Yeah. So you want to explain or?
You can go and I will add, please.
Yeah. So basically, first of all, our main goal is to do new applications to help the community grow, to help the platform grow, right? So what we want to do, first of all, it's helping the platform of EOS getting stronger and bigger. So our goal, that's why we're having investors and everything, because we want to make our community stronger, bigger, but also finding new resources and helping other people developing their own ideas. So that it's the creation of new dApps, and it's the first priority of Gravity.
We're focused on ecosystem of the EOS platform.
Yeah. Then we plan to make the community bigger and explain to the people how to join EOS and all the things for newcomers.
Okay.
What kind of program do you guys have going right now in terms of community engagement or projects you guys are working on?
Okay, so because as you can see, we have a lot of groups. We every day have translators. We're publishing news. So we have a division into few stage. For the beginner, we have a kindergarten project. Like, the people who want to buy, like, everyone say, I can buy coin, I can be rich, but they don't know how to buy and where to buy. So we have a kindergarten base. Every day release news, just basic information like where to buy, how to make a wallet for the kindergarten. The second, we have a team. We can analyze the graph. So it's for the beginner who don't know to buy. They can have a look at our information. So this is the second stage. Another one, to technology person. We try, just like you, we try to do a lot of offline technology training, offline developer training.
Activities where we teach developers how to do smart contracts in the EOS platform.
Yeah, so this is to beginner, green hands, normal people, and technology person. We're all of them. So we try to be really active in the group.
Oh, that's amazing. So you guys are already working on these community engagement sort of initiatives.
Yeah, right. And we're also doing some meetups, but we started recently, and the first one was last week. Not really the first one, but the biggest one. And I sent also the link to Kevin last week, but it's in a Chinese platform, so I guess it's difficult to watch it from the US, etc.
Okay.
Yeah, I missed the live stream, unfortunately, and I didn't see a recording, but I would have enjoyed seeing it. Was it in Shanghai that you guys had the meetup?
No, that one was in Shenzhen.
Shenzhen. Okay. Interesting. And then when you talk about all the members of your groups, where are all these members? Are they, you don't have Facebook, you're not using, where are the members of your groups?
Yeah, because here we use different platforms. So like we don't have Facebook, we don't use so much LinkedIn, even if there is LinkedIn. And Twitter, we don't use it, but like we have Weibo and WeChat, etc. So everything is still there. Like, for example, myself, I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn, etc. But all of them are like, they don't use all of this platform.
Yeah, we don't use this platform, so you guys cannot log in.
Yeah, we need to use VPN in order to connect to all the foreign
services. Yeah, it's difficult
services.
for most of Chinese people here. We cannot use it.
Interesting. Yeah, so let's move on a little bit, guys. The hardware that you guys are running, I know, Mira, this is your favorite topic. Do you have any idea about the hardware of the VPs? I was just kidding. I know it's not your favorite topic.
Okay. So I will talk about this. First of all, right now in the testnet, we are just using EC2 server like every other VP, basically. And 8 cores, 32 gigabytes. But the most important thing, I guess, the community want to know, it's our plan for the future, right? So we have a full plan, which is going to be published today, together with the introduction. But I will try to explain it in an easy way right now. So by June, we're going to have a IDC architecture, which is basically a bare metal architecture, which is going to be located probably in Shanghai, running together with a backup architecture in a cloud server, EC2. This cloud server is going to be located outside of China because we want to be certain to have a different jurisdiction for each architecture we're running. Then in the future, our goal is to have different IDC architecture located in different parts of the world. And we already plan to put one in Canada and probably one in Japan and China. So our main goal, we start in June with one IDC architecture, which is a bare metal architecture. And we're going to slowly upgrade it together with our cloud server. And once the revenue of the BP starts to arrive, we're going to upgrade all of the architecture into bare metal.
Okay.
So it's a little bit boring, I guess. But
Let me conclude. I mean, we're going to have a lot of server in different places in case one crash, and we have all the rest. Okay. So it's a fulfillment plan.
Yeah, and all the information, technical information, are going to be released later.
Yeah.
Is that going to be with the information that you release later today?
Yes.
Excellent.
And when it comes to views on, and also you mentioned when the EOS tokens start to come in, when the revenue comes in from the inflation, what about backers or investors that you currently have? You have a huge team and you guys are very coordinated. Can you talk more about that?
Okay, so the list of the investor, like we have like few, will come out later. I will reply this question of the affiliation with investor. We already confirmed with our team, which the investor, they will not care about the BP revenue after. What the investor really care is after, in the debt, if I come out new debt, they have new chance first and fast to know this project. So they can
the first chance to invest into new projects.
Yep, and they can know them fast. So it's called first investment chance. This what they care more about.
So basically the investors are not in for the BP revenues, but are in more for the community of our community, EOS Gravity growing, and for getting into certain depths that we're going to promote in the future earlier than other people.
So that's, we confirm that they're more focused on the new project, which is also good for the project, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's great. A lot of folks had questions about that, how the investors would be reimbursed. It sounds like it will not be from the revenue of the block producer. The money will be funneled back into the community to create new projects, new dApps, and then the investors will be able to receive some part of that, those dApps, it sounds like. So the community wins and the investors as well.
Yes.
Exactly. Or they can invest more into the new dApps.
They have a chance to know.
And speaking of dApp developers, do you guys have any affiliations with dApp developers that are already in the community?
So at the moment, we had some affiliation, but some dApp developers came to find us, and we're working with them, but we're still not ready to, publish them until they have their project ready. And like we said before, we're already investing. We plan to invest more people because we have a personal fund dedicated to investing into that developers.
This personal fund, let me add, so I remember, it's like a personal fund we already have. It's like angel investor funding. It's our own. Like let's say a person who have a lot of EOS, person who have a lot of Bitcoin, this kind of angel investor is our own funding. We're basically using this one to support the developer.
Yeah.
Is this like a VC fund, something like that?
Yeah. It's more like a VC angel.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we're going to help them with our resources, like introducing them to new VC that we know, or like helping them to get more popular, etc. Thanks to the investor that we got.
Yeah, it's called make them come out faster, because maybe like you see here we have a keep saying the ecosystem. We have a kindergarten and training, technology training, and here have like a incubator. So we basically make this project like add in our turtling it app, so we make it faster, put them online faster. We have resources. Also, the VC have resources to make them into the list faster.
Yeah.
So it's really a lot of benefits.
Yeah. So you're incubating.
Yeah, incubate them.
Very good.
I have to say that, Myra, I like your style. You guys are very enthusiastic for 7 a.m. You guys are fun to talk to. Thank you for being the first ever block producer candidate on the show.
Already did 50 push-ups to be adrenaline.
Did you beat Joe in push-ups?
I do myself.
I didn't do one.
You didn't do a single one?
I say I'm the worst.
Oh, man. Well, thank you guys for leading the charge here in terms of answering tough questions and coming out first here. And of course, other block producers, you're welcome to apply and be on the show. We have a couple questions about we would like your opinions on dividends for voters, right? And some people call this buying votes or kickbacks. There's a different terms for it, but in the end, it basically says it's a block producer saying to voters, if you vote for us, we will give you some percentage of the tokens back to you. Now, we have a lot of questions from the community about EOS Gravity's stance on dividends for voters.
It's really a good question.
First of all, I will reply in an easy way. We are neutral. Now I will kind of elaborate.
Could you repeat that, Joe?
We're neutral.
Neutral. In the middle.
Neutral. Okay, great.
So we're going to move forward to what the people think. Like, we're going to listen to our community, right? And we're going to listen to what the Constitution says. Our main goal right now is to make the platform better, right? So to make new dApps and to help the community grow, to teach new people, newcomers, etc. Right? This is our main goal. Then the secondary goal, or you can say secondary, tertiary, etc., is going to be to listen to the community, right? If the community say, "Hey, we want some dividends or something, right, from after I vote for you," or if the Constitution allows this kind of like dividends, okay, we are going to proceed and give them what is remaining from what we're going to have from the BP revenues. But if the Constitution disagrees with this kind of movement, and if the community don't want it, we're not going to proceed. So if there is a clear rule saying that you cannot give 1% to your voters back, we are not going to do it. So for example, before I was talking to Kevin from EOS New York, and he sent me a link saying that Thomas Cox already confirmed that there is going to be a rule saying that we disagree. It's not going to be allowed to give back to the voters. If that is the case, we're not going to give back to the voters.
Okay. I think it's fair.
Yeah, and the first thing is still going to be to make the platform better. Anything remaining is going to be for, if it's going to be allowed for the voters.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So I think that's very clear. I don't think we need to harp on it even more, but we can move on to about the views that you guys have for the 6 months lockup for voting. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, 6 months, I think like it's not a perfect time, but it's still like there is nothing perfect, right? But I also think that 6 months is really important, or anyway, a long term is important because it makes the vote count. Like when I'm going to vote for someone, I will think about it. I will think, is it going to benefit the platform? Because I cannot use this token anymore, right? And it's important to have a lockup for a certain period because otherwise everyone will vote and keep back their vote the day after. And it's also important for us block producers because if we know that there is a 6 month lockup, even if you can change vote, there is more of a certainty that you're going to stay in that position for kind of a long time.
Okay. Otherwise, everyone, today I want the car, I take my token. I think 6 months, nothing is perfect, but it's okay. 6 months.
That's
okay.
You guys are you share a lot of the same opinions of many other block producers and of the community as well. What other affiliations? You mentioned EOS New York. What other affiliations do you guys have with block producers?
At the moment, like we don't have any profit affiliation, and we're not planning to have any profit affiliation. But like we plan to make the community bigger, right? And we plan to participate more to the with the community. So we plan to have affiliation in the future. And we stand to be a more connected platform and community, like I was saying. And I think that all the BPs should communicate and keep in touch with each other. At the moment, EOS Link, which is founded by me, like I was saying before, is providing help to EOS Gravity on the block producing side. And many other block producers are already doing the same. Like a big shout out to Erik from EOS SE for always being online and helping people, from the community testnet. And also, we hope to communicate and contact more EOS New York and other block producers.
That's awesome. And you guys are obviously in the community testnet and making that work. What do you guys think is the biggest hurdle for EOS to get a mass adoption in your geographic region, but in general as a whole? We'd like to hear, and what is EOS Gravity going to do to help that?
Yeah, I think that the biggest hurdle should be more of in the world, because actually we're all in the same situation. The governments talk bad about blockchain, right? The society think bad about blockchain. It's not a lot about EOS, but if we can create good applications which normal people, common people use, and they don't notice that they are using a decentralized application or they're using an EOS build application, then that is the way that we can have massive adoption. If, for example, Uber is being built on EOS, everyone is using it, and then suddenly they say, hey, how did they build this application, right? They will start to inform themselves, understand it's built on EOS, understand it's a blockchain, right? And then after, more people are going to start using EOS and other blockchains. But yeah, the main goal right now for us, BP and others, I think, is to create great applications that people
benefit.
That can benefit everyone. Then massive adoption will come with it.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
So this is like an example which I prepared. When we think about destruction, you think about if you're in a subway station, you saw that person, you see this person, they don't know about blockchain. They don't.
Yeah.
They don't know. Like an example is it was a New Year, maybe 1 month before. I was going in my hometown, and my mom is asking "What are you doing recently?" I say, "I know I have Bitcoin and blockchain," and they're really worried. They're thinking I'm doing something scam, okay? Because they say it's okay if you women don't earn money, you can marry someone. Don't do this anymore, like this, okay? So the masses still have a misunderstanding about the same what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like I was in food in Friday, and people is asking, what's your job? What's your job? I say, I'm a blockchain, etc. And they just say, anyway, it's going to be end later. It's going to fail soon. It's a burst. It's a bubble, etc. So everyone think like this, like normal person around us, they think like this. So
it's going to create a new perception. It's it.
I know what you mean too. It's hard to explain to people exactly what we're doing, right? It's hard to sum it up in 2 or 3 sentences. Some people can say, oh, I'm an accountant, or I'm this or that, right? When it comes to blockchain, there is no easy way to really describe it quite yet. That's also hard in China, huh?
Yeah, it is.
And then, so we'd like to move on towards wrapping up. I guess, so Joe, thank you for doing the EOS link as well. It sounds like you're trying to link the English-speaking communities and the Chinese communities so that we're all able to communicate more effectively and learn more about each other.
And Italian-speaking communities.
And that in the future.
As many as possible, right? Maybe half the world. But thank you for doing that. And also, what are the next steps for English-speaking communities or anyone really to get involved with EOS Gravity, to learn more? What should we do?
So just today we made our Twitter public just before our live, and we just created Steemit, and we're going to start to post on that regularly. So I will send you the link once it's all ready, and people can follow us there. Steemit and Twitter.
It's like before, every day our current job before is kind of translate the English of news to China part. Right now, we try to also give our news back to overseas. Yeah. So we try to be more decentralized community.
Nice. I like it. Well,
it was a pleasure having you guys on. It was amazing.
Joe, I'd recommend you should go start doing some push-ups. Otherwise, Myra might beat you in an arm wrestle, and that wouldn't be cool. So, yeah, we'll let you guys get off camera before you start doing push-ups, though.
I would like to add one more thing on the voting, because I know that it's a really big matter. Everyone wants to know. Right?
It is.
So I want to clarify that there are a lot of BPs right now coming out that stand for giving dividends of 50%, 75%, and everything,
yes.
right? So I think for EOS Gravity that this kind of action is wrong. Like we cannot let people have this kind of dividend power to the community, because it's kind of a way of stealing power.
It is.
Once you see this kind of BPs giving 75% or 50% back to the people who voted them, they're basically keeping the power to stay in the top 21 block producers forever if there wasn't governance, right?
Yeah.
Because in this kind of situation, everyone will vote for them. They will have a bunch of votes. They will always be there first, right? And they will not do nothing for the community, because what they will use the revenues for is going to be for paying off the voters, right? And keep back something for themselves. And then they will continue doing this every single month. But luckily we have a governance system, and we can keep them out.
I also think so. Like we are Gravity. We already did a lot day and night, manage the group, giving info, helping the kindergarten, giving the graph analyze. We did so much, and other people say, "I will give you 80%." Everyone ran away. So it's kind of
and it's even questionable whether or not that business model is going to be financially viable as well too. So
that's great that you got. Thank you guys for issuing such a strong stance about that from EOS Gravity. That's reassuring to hear for a lot of folks in the community, and I know a lot of folks will be very excited to read your Steemit post later on today, and I know I'll be checking it out as well. So thank you for showing us more about EOS Gravity. It's a real pleasure having you guys on.
Thanks, Joe and Mira.
And all members, just thanks for the invitation, and it's an honor. Remember to say that. Okay.
What was that again?
I'm going to represent all the team all the members of community to thanks for your invitation.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you,
Oh, really?
Mira.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin and Blue
Thank you for
Jays.
having us.
Thank you.
Great to meet you guys. Have a good day.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
So we're going to move forward to the news, the EOS news. We already talked a little bit about it. When we were going over with Erik, we talked about the John Oliver situation, a little bit about Binance as well. Let's go ahead and turn back around to that. Blue Jays, let's do a couple thoughts though from EOS Gravity. What are you thinking?
I think they're great people. I mean, they couldn't have chose better representatives to represent EOS Gravity. They're saying the right things as well. I think it's going to be a relief for a lot of the community to hear certain things that they've said, especially with their stance on buying votes. Also that they will respect the Constitution and also what they're doing for their community. So they are already sort of having initiatives where they're incubating people, as Mira put it, and I think that means a lot in their part of the world where they're doing a lot of education for people who may not know. They're doing a lot of education, it seems like.
Sure, and also the way that they're obviously a very serious block producer candidate, and they brought in extra money from outside, and they've also figured out a way to reward those investors without having to kick back any rewards from the actual revenue of the block producer, from the inflation. So I think that's a wonderful way they've set it up. That's interesting to me. I'm also I should mention that we did talk to them before the actual show. We brought up the regulations issue, and we would rather not talk about that ideally. So that is why we avoided those topics, in case you're wondering. So of course, that will be more prominent for everybody coming up in the next few months. As of right now, it wasn't a valid topic, or we just weren't able to talk about it quite like we wanted to. But we thank EOS Gravity for answering all the questions that they did. It was great getting a clear stance on all their different parts of their block producer candidacy.
Yeah, Kevin. So did you want to go on and talk about the Binance mainnet token swap? What does this mean for us? Like, I think regarding this, I believe Mr. Larimer, Dan Larimer, made a comment in the chat today saying that which one of their mainnets, or are they going to support, which chain are they going to support swap for? So good point, touche, Dan. And it's like, Binance, you really need to let us know.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, Binance is not making that decision as to which is the actual main net, right? But does that mean they're going to, is it like Bitcoin Cash, for example? When Bitcoin Cash forked, you had some exchanges that honored the fork immediately, and then you had an exchange like Coinbase that waited all the way until January to give you your coins. EOS is far more complicated, because obviously there will be multiple chains at launch, and nobody knows what the actual chain will be for a little while. We have to wait for our constitution to be selected by the chain, and then we also have to sort of wait and find out from block.one which chain they support. Thomas Cox, going back to his block producer Q&A sessions that he has done, he has mentioned before that block.one will likely choose one chain that they develop their own dApps on. And as we all know, block.one, whichever chain they choose, will likely be the prominent chain, the prominent EOS chain. They have that massive venture capitalist fund that they will be using. They also have their own team developing dApps and so on and so forth. So Binance, how can we say that Binance is going to secure your tokens, right? It's still another entity holding your value, and they're claiming that they will help you because they want to continue holding that value. It's in their best interest for you to leave your EOS tokens with them.
Good point, Kevin.
So I think that leaves open the door. Always go back to Andrew M. of Atlanta. He says, register your tokens. Don't leave it up to chance. Just sit back on launch day and accept all the different chains that will share drop their tokens on you.
Another thing I'll say is that given the fact that Binance is announcing their support for this almost 3 months in advance, it just tells you how popular EOS must be and how important EOS must be to them. And that's a bit of positive news out of this, I think, as well.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that, but that makes a lot of sense. I mean, EOS launch is not something you read about when you go on Reddit, for example, right? All they talk about is how EOS is this and that. The fact that Binance has stepped out and they're a reputable, respected exchange, even though they are still centralized, everybody seems to trust them more than other exchanges. And they've taken the right steps in some situations in order to earn that trust. For example, their recent hack, or whatever you'd like to call it, it turned out to be a non-issue. They responded very quickly and they took action and they mitigated the risk. So
did you
having
see
that,
sorry,
go ahead.
It was just on the top of my mind. Did you ever see that? I think you did. The one with Warren Buffett and Binance. That video.
I love that. I love that video. It's a video. It's more of a. Is it a GIF or a video?
It might have been an animated GIF. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it GIF or GIF? I don't even know which one. Anyway, so it's Warren Buffett, and you can't tell what they're saying, right? Because there's no sound with a GIF, and so it has subtitles. And he's doing an interview with like Charlie Rose or some big name interviewer, and Buffett the subtitles are talking about Buffett buying Litecoin and Tron and all these ridiculous coins, and how he started off with multi-billions of dollars and now he's down to $280 from day trading. It's a great gift. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend go. You can probably find it in the EOS price chat. I'm sure they post it there once in a while.
We'll find it and post it on the forums.
We'll do that too. Yeah, help everybody out. So Binance, going back to them, it is a vote of confidence for EOS, seeing them step up and say that. It also, we'll see how wider crypto perception will take this news, or if they even care, and whether or not they'll start to look more into EOS. I've said before in the past that I found out about EOS on Reddit first, and I was told it was a scam, and I did not look back into it for 2 months, right? So I spent 2 months ignorant of EOS and learned about it in October. So thank you, Reddit. And let's move forward to...
One last comment, Kevin.
Yeah.
That would give Binance a good 3 months time to develop the software behind supporting multiple chains if they were so inclined. I mean, news is probably out there now that there will be multiple chains, so all power to Binance if they can help us support that.
You're making great points. Actually, I wonder if we could look through the GitHub and see if Binance has made any pull requests, or if they're working on something that might help. I don't know. I mean, that's all just speculation, but
yeah,
it'd be wonderful if they were working in some way to help EOS. That would be another vote of confidence. But we should bring back Erik to discuss those kind of speculative
on another
thoughts.
show.
Yeah, we're hoping to have him back at some point. Erik, he's, like we said, he's fun to talk to. So moving forward, now the John Oliver piece, we've gone over that some. I don't know if there's a whole lot else to cover. I think they picked out easy targets and they went ahead and chased after them, which is, BitConnect and that guy yelling on the microphone at BitConnect. I mean, there's memes galore. There's all kinds of techno remix videos out there of that guy, him launching into space after he's yelling, and that stuff is funny. And some parts of the EOS terms and conditions are also pretty funny if you really step back and take a look at them, and you don't know much else about the project.
Yeah. I hate to use that FUD term, but that's what it smells like to me.
Hey, I mean, it's going to become possibly more of an issue as time goes on. I mean, who knows? And let's go forward also to the EOS Stack Exchange proposal. This was about 5-6 days ago. block.one has put out an official proposal, and I believe the community has gone ahead and gotten it approved by this point, and hopefully it will appear before long. So basically, Stack Exchange, you probably know about Stack Overflow. Any developer who's worked on projects has heard of Stack Overflow, has had some questions answered by Stack Overflow, or probably has it pulled up on their another tab all day long as they're trying to work on stuff. It's a very important Q&A site, question and answer, and so there are different sub-communities with Stack Exchange, and EOS would be very beneficial to have an EOS-specific Stack Exchange site. Therefore, it's already a trusted resource for developers. And when developers are coming over to EOS and they're trying to learn more about it, they'll have this repository of information, questions, and answers that have already gone through, and they'll be able to learn quickly.
And if you haven't seen it, if any of our viewers hasn't seen it, go back probably maybe a day or two in our community updates channel, and you'll see how you can get involved there, how you can follow, and also how to become part of that proposal as well to make that come to fruition. So, Kevin, anything else to say about that? I know we had another news item about cryptocurrency scammers.
Yeah, this is in sort of a frustrating news, cryptocurrency scammers made off with more than 2 million after they ditched investors. Now, this was another one of those fake ICO scams where they created a LinkedIn profile and then they brought in a whole bunch of people. It was over 1,000 investors for their fake coin called the Giza coin. So I don't know where this all came from, but the real question is with EOS. And EOS projects get to decide between venture capitalist funds, which is provided by block.one and also partners of block.one, as we've heard about Galaxy Investments, Tomorrow Ventures. These are venture capitalist firms that will go ahead and qualify different dApp developers and projects and teams in order to give them funding. And that way block.one can focus on developing software, which is their specialty. The other option, of course, instead of doing venture capitalist funds is to go back and do an ICO, which is what Iryo is doing. ICOs have a very bad rep at this point because there have been so many unfortunate scams that have happened. And Giza coin is just another one of these. The real question is how EOS can avoid something like this in the future. How can the community come together and vet these projects, I should say, to make sure they're not scams, right?
Yeah, great question, Kevin. I think that's up to us, not us as EOS Go, but up to us as a community to help vet coins and projects and basically ask the right questions and put a face to the name, bring people on this show or have a centralized place like possibly EOS Index, where we can look at projects as well as evaluate them.
Sure. I think that makes sense. And it is always going to be a community effort. We are here to help, of course. If you would like us to try and reach out to some projects, we hopefully were able to clear up a few things about Iryo today. I, for one, gained a little respect for them. I love the way they're approaching everything. So if you guys would like us to help, if you like our help approaching projects to find out more and possibly to get them on the show, always let us know. You can reach out to us on our forums, or you can email us admin@eosgo.io, or you can just privately message us on Telegram. We're on there quite often.
Yep.
As well. So going to meetups, right?
Yeah, let's go into meetups.
EOS Dublin is coming up tomorrow, March 13th. That's Tuesday. And we're going to paste their website here. If you're already in Dublin, perhaps you can make it. If not, you better start flying. It looks like it's going to be an interesting meetup.
I would love to go to a meetup in Dublin. My beer of choice is a Guinness, and I think they would probably serve some, nice Guinness at that meetup. I'm not assuming anything, but I think there would be a pretty good chance.
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly not go remiss. I think people might enjoy that meetup quite a lot. And NS James has said before how he would like to get us a beer at some point as thank you for the interview. And I said, well, why don't you just buy us a whole brewery, man? I like Guinness. Why don't you just get us the Guinness brewery? So NS James, if you're watching, please work on that.
NS James is in the chat.
NS James, all right, man. So you heard us, and you have no excuse anymore. So that Guinness brewery better be coming our way to the U.S. Or you can just fly us over there. Moving on to EOS Atlanta. They have a meetup coming up in April. I know there's an announcement coming as to what the actual date will be. And a speaker has been procured, I believe. Or the announcement is coming soon for who that speaker might be. I think Atlanta is going to be a large meetup, I would think, because they already have a big big interest in blockchain. They have great meetups already. And also, it's a hub airport. So anyone can fly in very easily and for fairly cheap.
Good point. That's an excellent point. Atlanta is a international hub, and you can fly over there from Europe pretty easily. Hartsfield Jackson Airport is one of the busiest in the U.S., so if not the busiest. So I expect that as a possible international hub and a good place to meet up if you're in the south of the U.S. So I'll be keeping my eye on that one.
I would agree. And coming up, I think it's a combo video of two different meetup organizers announcing their meetups and introducing themselves to the community. And also I'd like to quickly say about Erik. We have Erik from EOS Sweden. They have a meetup. It's not actually run by Erik. He's helping with some of the organization, but the meetup is coming in April. More information is to come. So keep your eyes open for that if you're near Sweden.
We had a video for EOS Shenzhen and we're not able to play it on air today, but we will play the one for EOS Toronto, who has several updates in that video. So we'll go ahead with that. And we also wanted to mention, just before we go to that Hong Kong will be having a meetup as well on April 6th. If anyone has more information on that would be nice. We probably have it in the forums itself. So if anybody wants more information about these meetups, just head over to the forums. We have a whole section for meetups. So and especially the ones coming up. So let me just play this video, guys. And this is from Daniel Keys of EOS Toronto and of EOS Nation right now. So here we go.
What's up, EOS fans? It's Daniel Keys here from EOS Nation and EOS Toronto. I'm here just to let you know about some meetups we've got planned in Toronto. If you're watching this live, tomorrow, that's March the 13th at 6 p.m., we've got a pub night at the Imperial Pub. That's right downtown by Dundas Station. The following week, we've got the Iryo team in town. They're going to be doing a talk on how blockchain can disrupt the healthcare industry. That's going to be on March the 19th, a Monday. That's at 6:30 p.m. Then again, the following week, we've got another pub night. This is going to be on a Wednesday at 6 p.m. again at the Imperial Pub. We're going to be trying to do 2 pub nights every month. We're going to switch it up between Tuesdays and Wednesdays, try to accommodate as many schedules as we can. And finally, I want to let you know about this very special meetup we're going to be planning. This isn't on the calendar yet, but pencil it in. Friday, May the 18th, we're going to have a VIP speaker come down. Can't say much more than that, but write it down. And make sure you check out our website, eos-toronto.com. We've got all of our meetups posted there, links to our meetup page. So you can RSVP, keep it in your calendar. And it'll be great to see you guys out there. Before I let you go, I just wanted to give a big shout out both to EOS Nation and EOS Go. They've been a huge help in making these meetups possible. So just wanted to send out my thanks to both those teams. Take care.
Oh, what a nice message from one of our partners in EOS Nation, and also who's also running EOS Toronto. So it looks like these guys are having some great meetups, and if you guys have any sort of meetups that you want to promote, we're always here. We're not only promoting only certain ones. We're promoting everybody's. So
yeah, we'd like to spread the word. And Sheldon with EOS Shenzhen, sorry we couldn't get the video in and couldn't get it up on the show, but EOS Shenzhen is having a meetup. I believe it's March 24th coming up, and we will get that on next week's show, and hopefully get a word from Sheldon based in Shenzhen, China. Moving forward, I guess we'll be start wrapping this up. Blue Jays?
Yeah, thought of the week. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot more coverage of things coming out from the EOS world, maybe, and possibly more in the mainstream media, or more items that possibly bring up things that may be considered fear, uncertainty, doubt type of things. And I think we just need to be pretty confident in the team that we have, and the awesome project that we've all become to know, and just the type of tools that we're developing in this community. And just look at, we're one of the only communities that have an engineer and a CTO who's developed a working, amazing project and projects. And I would say if anybody who goes to blocktivity.info, they can see blockchain projects that have a lot of transactions per day, and that's Steemit and BitShares, and those are the type of projects that we need to build on, and that's EOS.
I like what you're saying, and you summed it up pretty well. I think that, and like you said, the mainstream media, it doesn't matter really what is said at this point. I mean, it's a hard learning curve for EOS, right? Figuring this all out, understanding the token sale, all that stuff will come to an end in about 3 to 4 months, and then we'll have a live chain. I think we need to focus on staying strong as a community and continuing what we're doing. I think this is the only show in any crypto that I know of where anyone can come on, and we have people from all around the world who are passionate about this project, and they care about this blockchain, and they are sacrificing in their own lives to be able to be a part of this blockchain and be a part of this community. I'm excited for the future. I have no concerns whatsoever. I'm looking forward to watching all this unfold, and then at the end just smiling and saying, yeah, well, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. EOS, I believed from the beginning. So I look forward to enjoying this journey with you, Blue Jays, and with everybody else watching. I think anyone who's watching this right now is probably in the same boat as Blue Jays and I. You love EOS. You want to get into the nitty-gritty and the nuts and bolts. And I think these are the good old days right now. I think someday we'll look back on these and we'll see we're a small community just trying as hard as we can to make EOS as great as possible. And we're going to someday meet up together at some international EOS summit, and we're all just going to have a beer together and say, wow, those are the good old Telegram days, right? Right, Blue Jays?
Yeah, exactly. And we'll all know what the @ sign means in the future, right?
No more explaining the @ sign to everybody. So
exactly. Everyone, just last statement from me. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube. Also, join the community updates channel if you haven't so already, and also get involved on the forums. There's so much amazing things going on there.
Yep, and a couple other updates. The Block Producer Report is coming out again every Wednesday for now. We're actually building a portal site for block producers to go in and update their information, and also it'll do all of the randomization, everything else by itself. We'll be able to set up criteria. It's improving. It's for now we have to stick with the old Block Producer Reports, so bear with us. We are working towards just having open block producer candidate information as much as possible. We want everybody to understand their candidates and be able to make the best votes possible. We are doing this show every week, starting at 6 p.m. every Monday, 2300 UTC, excuse me. And as Blue Jays said, please join our community updates channel if you are a block producer and you need to stay updated on that, or even if you're just a community member who would like to know more about EOS news and updates. Blue Jays, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been a pleasure, dude. Go EOS.
Go EOS.
See you guys.